Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the Sports Stories podcast. I'm your host Seiji McSwain, and for today's video I'm going to be going over my top 10 NBA players that'll be future stars. Now most of these, or all of these players I should say, are already in the league, so most of them already kind of shown flashes, so it was kind of easy to pick out who's who. So I didn't choose any high school players or League Ignite players or OTE players, because frankly I just don't know enough about those players coming up, and college players haven't included. So all of them are in the NBA currently, but I chose some that probably going to be running the league in the next 5 or so years. Since the end of an era is coming up. LeBron's kind of trekking off into the sunset. Same with Carmelo, Chris Paul. I mean, basically all those players of that caliber, they're kind of going down. So I thought, might as well, do a little preview on who's going to be running the league and who's going to be the future generation of that group of LeBron, Carmelo, and Chris Paul. Now, starting off with some honorable mentions, have Evan Mobley, Scottie Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and LaMelo Ball. And despite being young, Mobley, Barnes, and Ball were in the running for a top 10 berth. No one could credibly argue that any of the three players, who will all be 21 years old this season, are yet at the height of their abilities. Actually, Ingram was the final one to go by the conclusion of the 5 years I'm considering. He will be 29 years old, just in the middle of my ideal age range. And throughout his career, all he has done is becoming better. It's not a slight to come close to being named the potential greatest of the best out of those honorable mentions, but I just thought he just kind of doesn't meet the caliber of the next 10 players that I'm about to rank here. Now, coming in at 10, I have Anthony Edwards. Now, I'm breaking the general rule of not picking very young players right away, but Anthony Edwards, who just finished his second season, it's worth deviating from the safety of slightly older picks. He's about the same age as Mobley and Barnes, but the Minnesota Timberwolves guard already has a year on those rookies. More importantly, the development he demonstrated in his second season placed him in rare historical company. Only 3 20-year-olds in the NBA history have played over 2,400 minutes with at least a 26% usage rate and a true shooting percentage of 56%. He joins the likes of Kevin Durant and Shaquille O'Neal. With it comes to separating this position from the honorable mentions, a statistic demonstrating Edwards' remarkable similarities to alternative players is what makes the difference. After a second season in which he averaged 21.3 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 3.8 assists per game, 2 additional variables have led Edwards to this position. The first is that he serves as the team's top on-ball shot maker, the kind of player who, if you don't have one, means you can kiss any chance of contention goodbye. Edwards, he's a very high leverage star, and he's probably one of the best high leverage stars there is in the league. And Edwards' extraordinary athleticism is the final factor that allows him to make the top 10 as the youngest participant. He has an extremely rare speed bounce combination, and it doesn't stay forever. Edwards' high speed could be the next 5 as his understanding of the game improves while he's still a top zillionth percentile athlete. If Edwards' decision making and defense improve, he has a chance to be as good as any guard in the league, and he could reach that level as soon as next season. Now, next, coming in at 9, I have Joel Embiid. Now, due to his youth, Edwards was a really risky choice, and Joel Embiid's history of injuries makes him much riskier. The big man for the Philadelphia 76ers hasn't yet endured a full regular season and playoffs, and his next 5 seasons may potentially be just as injury plagued as his previous 5. The fact is that from 2017 to 2018, all the way from 2021 to 2022, or his age to 27 seasons, Embiid was among the game's most powerful and productive powers. Despite those problems, and in a league that is shrinking, it seems reasonable to bet on one of the last overpowering interior forces. Embiid has a massive size and strength advantage over almost every center he faces. Embiid, the MVP runner-up the last 2 years now, has 4 All-NBA selections and 3 All-Defensive selections. He has had all of this while suffering from injuries. So in a way, we can analyze his next 5 years similarly to any of those individual seasons since 2017 to 2018, which is to say that even if he misses roughly 1/3 of his team's games, Embiid will be right in the thick of major award debates. Because injuries might escalate, the calculus may be off. Nevertheless, Embiid participated in 68 games last season and at least 51 in 5 consecutive. He could be able to play in 70 or 75% of his team's future games with some load management. When he has played less than that, Embiid has been rated by everyone as one of the league's top players. More than anything, it seems silly to leave out a player who has a solid chance of winning numerous MVP awards over the course of the next 5 years. Although Embiid's future is quite uncertain, he is currently a superstar in the midst of his peak. Both the injury risk and Embiid's superior play are real. And next up, coming in at 8, I have Ja Morant. Now, this past season, Ja Morant was a top 10 player. His selection to the All-NBA second team and 7th place finish in MVP voting are strong indicators of this. He might have deserved a top 5 spot on this list if it weren't for the injury concerns that come with his devil-may-care attitude towards personal safety. Even putting the 22-year-old at number 8 feels risky given his 40 missed regular season games in 3 seasons. Less to mention the bone, braces that he's had. I mean, it just hasn't seemed good. Especially the bone bruise in his right knee that kept Morant out of the final 3 games of the Memphis Grizzlies' second round playoff series loss to the Golden State Warriors. Morant may play through discomfort for the majority of his career due to his small stature and tendency for putting himself in danger. He's a complete force when he is at full integrity. The most improved player this year led the league in points in the paint per game for the first time since 1996, when the NBA started keeping track of this statistic, averaging 27.4 points per game. It's just that Morant exposes himself to risk more often than the other players do, and his durability isn't some hypothetical concern for the future. We have already seen him fall severely numerous times. Crossing my fingers for this choice. Morant's shooting is his weakest point, but he's added 3-point volume to his profile every year and will shoot 34.4% from deep in 2021 to 2022. That's sufficient for a player with his burst. All he needs for a downhill advantage is for a defender to close out. Honestly, Morant will truly become impossible to cover if he continues to improve as a perimeter shooter. Finally, Morant's Grizzlies appear to be on track to play a large number of important games over the next 5 years. You can't underestimate the developmental value of high-stress playoff situations, and he'll be in a lot of them. Now, coming at number 7, I have Bam Adebayo. Now, Bam Adebayo is a starter and important member of the Miami Heat, a team that has twice reached the conference finals in the last 3 years. He possesses the best balance of proven performance and youth that we have yet to see. The only other players to average at least 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists at age 22 or younger are Adebayo, Nikola Jokic, and Oscar Robertson. Adebayo has already been named to 3 all-defensive teams before the start of his age 25 season. Adebayo, who is currently 24 years old, is on track to become the game's most complete modern center. Adebayo isn't the same kind of scoring threat as the previous three players were, nitpickers would point out. He has yet to average more than 19.1 points per game and lacks a consistent three-point shot. Nonetheless, he is gradually developing more on his own attempts and is one of the league's best front court facilitators. Only Nikola Jokic has more than Adebayo's 904 total assists over the last 3 seasons. The shot is on its way. In 3 of the last 4 seasons, Adebayo has been a better than average mid-range shooter among big men, and his career 74.1% foul line hit rate gives hope that his stroke will eventually extend beyond the arc. Adebayo's offense is really a bonus in the end. He stands out for his defense, especially in an NBA that prizes athleticism and versatility more and more. Among all players who have guarded at least 100 isolation possessions last year, Adebayo kept opponents' points per possession rates to the lowest levels. He's the epitome of a contemporary defensive center and ought to be a strong contender for Defensive Player of the Year over the next 5 years. Now coming in at number 6, we have Trae Young. Now Trae Young would be your first choice to compete with Doncic or Jokic for the title of Best Offensive Player over the next 5 seasons. Actually, your first thought may be, wait, there's the title for Best Offensive Player over a 5-year span? That's strange. However, after that, Young's long-range shooting off the dribble tests defenses to their limits, and he takes advantage for all the space he forces opponents to cover by displaying some of the league's best passing vision. Young is one of the NBA's most dangerous lob and drop-off passers when he gets inside the arc. Especially when he gets into the lane, he created what could have passed for a tutorial on how to execute creative and accurate alley-oops in the 2021 playoffs. Last season, Young led the NBA in total points and assists at the age of 23, and Jokic was the only player to outperform him in LeBron and offensive EPM. Only Jokic and Tatum had greater on-off impacts on their team's offensive ratings among players who have played at least 2,400 minutes. Young isn't exactly an offensive safety net for the Atlanta Hawks because that term implies a higher floor rather than a higher ceiling. He is not out there ensuring Atlanta can just get by on offense. His presence alone ensures that the Hawks will perform at or near league best levels in that regard. The ingredients for a long-term contender are all there if you surround him with a respectable defense and some secondary production. Now coming in at number 5, we have Devin Booker. In some ways, Devin Booker is the most promising young player on this list. He's 6th all-time in total points scored through his age 25 season, with only LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony, Tracy McGrady, Kobe Bryant, and Michael Jordan ahead of him. While Booker was initially criticized as an empty scorer or good stats bad team player, he has since shed that label completely. The 3-time All-Star averaged over 25 points per game in each of the last 4 series for the Phoenix Suns. The 4 series the Phoenix Suns played on their path to the 2021 finals. This year, during Phoenix's regrettably brief postseason run, he scored 23.3 points per game on 45.1, 43.1, and 88.7% of his shots. Many of the athletes on this list have not yet reached their peak, and some of the older athletes may start to experience some age-related decline by the end of the next 5 years. We're catching Booker a deserving first-team All-NBA selection and 4th-place MVP finisher at the ideal point in his growth curve. He has mastered the art of top scoring and playmaking, and we have witnessed him progressively effectively use his size and strength on defense. He also deserves any extra points for being uniquely suited to success in the ruthless, weakness-exploiting torture chamber that is the playoffs. Booker is the league's most scalable and portable young star, capable of scoring at all 3 levels, playing on or off the ball, and no longer someone offenses can take attack on defense. Now coming in at number 4, I have Nikola Jokic. Now, Nikola Jokic is without a doubt a top 10 player right now, as seen by his 2 consecutive MVP wins. You're overthinking things, friend, and if we need to discuss that, please see a doctor to address your terrible case of galaxy brain. Jokic, although being on the elder side of the field, should age better than most because he doesn't rely heavily on his athleticism. At the end of my 5-year span, when he will be 32, his mind, size, and touch will be just as successful as they have ever been. Jokic's defensive performance may become even more compromised if his speed and quickness continue to deteriorate, but it's not like he has always relied on such maneuvers. Jokic was aware of his skills and flaws even as a young prospect. He will have an easier time adjusting to the athletic limitations of age than anyone else because, well, he won't have to adjust at all. Another quality of Jokic is durability, and the fact that he has played in at least 72 games in each season of his career bodes well for his aging curve. Jokic doesn't play the kind of gravity-defying, cut-on-a-dime game that will expose him to injury, unlike Morant and some other high-risk injury prospects we discussed before. Jokic at the pinnacle of his abilities after 3 seasons of consistent increases in true shooting percentage and rising trends in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks per game. There is every reason to think he can maintain this level until his age 31 season in 2026 to 2027 based on the way he now performs. Now coming in at number 3, we have Jayson Tatum. Now Jayson Tatum, a starter in the All-Star game and an All-NBA first-teamer in his age 23 season, established himself as a superstar in 2021 to 2022. As crazy as it sounds, he still has a lot of room to grow. Tatum is a poor finisher, which combined with the generally difficult shot profile of a top option contributes to effective field goal percentages that are close to league average. Tatum, who stands 6'8" 6'8", has the frame to finish over and around most opponents, but he's still figuring out how to strike a balance between making contact and simply converting in the lane. Another criticism of Tatum is his erratic passing, as he has recently set a record for most postseason turnovers. There are worse all-time distinctions to possess because that doesn't occur unless your team makes a deep run. However, his assist percentage has increased over the past 4 years and is now in the top tier for his position. And it's difficult to criticize Tatum's choices when you see him and read the floor in this way. Tatum has ideal size and skills for the wing-driven modern NBA, as well as a wealth of big-game experience. Even Tatum's struggles in Boston's finals loss have a positive spin. He was the best player on a team that advanced that far, and the lessons he learned against the Warriors will serve him well as he enters his prime. Boston's centerpiece could plateau at his current level and still be a top 10 player and the best two-way wing we've covered so far. Tatum, unfortunately, for the rest of the league, is still improving. Now at number 2, I have Luka Doncic. Even though Luka Doncic is too young to fall into the desirable 25 to 29 age range for the next 5 seasons, it is irrelevant. The 23-year-old has already placed in the top 6 in the MVP voting each of the last 3 years, and with some dedication to his conditioning, he will likely win the prize numerous times over the next 5 years. Actually, Doncic might not even need to seriously commit to exercising, since 2019 to 2020, the only people with higher finishes in the MVP vote have all been older than Dallas Mavericks franchise pillar. Whether or not he loses the excess weight, Luka might just quietly overtake those athletes as they become less effective as they age. Doncic, the first player in NBA history to be named to 3 All-NBA first teams by the age of 22, may be the most productive young player we've ever seen. He and Oscar Robertson are the only players to have averaged at least 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists in their first 4 seasons. Doncic began his career at the age of 19, 3 years before Robertson, and does not benefit from the same pace-inflated statistical environment that existed in the early 1960s. Given all of this, it was difficult to deny Doncic the top spot in these rankings. It could be a mistake if he commits to getting in shape and embracing a more consistent commitment to defense. In the end, the health and conditioning related issues matter, especially in the light of the person who comes in ahead of Doncic for the top slot. There's no ambiguity surrounding the athlete ranked first. And now coming in at one who I think is going to absolutely run the league for the next 5 seasons, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, Giannis Antetokounmpo has been an MVP candidate for 4 consecutive seasons, winning the award twice. There's no reason to think differently about his age 28 campaign. While Doncic faces questions about his defense and conditioning, Giannis is unaffected. For my money, Antetokounmpo is the best player in the game, and the work ethic that has remade his body and broadened his skill set year after year isn't going away. It's reasonable to expect his next 5 seasons to be better than his last, even if the latter part of that run will take him past 30. Is a 2-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and championship winner getting any better? Why wouldn't the man who has come this far for playing for a second division Greek league team less than 10 years ago pull that off if anyone were to do it? Despite Giannis's athletic prowess, he wasn't an all-time great at birth, one of himself, and became that kind of commitment and thinking gives you the confidence to forecast future highs that are much higher. It's unclear how his development will go. Maybe he'll finally develop a reliable 3-point shot for his arsenal. Perhaps Antetokounmpo will switch to a full-time center status as he gets stronger, and open up devastatingly potent attacking units that give nothing back on the other end. Giannis is already one of the league's most physically dominant players, and he hasn't even begun to tap into his old man strength. The bulldozing of helpless defenders may only be getting started. And that'll be all for today's episode. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Also, while you're down there, make sure you hit a like and subscribe. That'll be greatly appreciated. And also share the video with anybody that you think may want to hear more about this topic. And it is very interesting. I think a lot of the changes in the NBA it's going to be huge, but can't wait for the future of the NBA. It looks like it's in great hands. But again, that'll be all for today's video. Thank you for watching all the way through, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.